Morning. Well, it's dry again today. It's still very wet underfoot, but we need to make the most of this dry weather. So getting on with a few things on the plot today. First of all, Mrs. K has taken out the dahlias. So I'm going to go to the polytunnel and just bring them out to help the drying process. So she took out the dark dahlia that we had here, and she's taken all the corms out. Let's go and have a look. So things are drying out well in the polytunnel. The seeds, I had a look at them yesterday. As you can see, they're turning that sort of papery brown colour, and that's really good news. We can open those really easy. So there's a few more to turn yet. These have mainly gone. This is the Belotti climbing bean, and this is the cannellini, and they too have turned really well. So I'm going to be retrieving those seeds pretty quick. And the Tsar seed, which I took out and just left to dry, is really dried out nicely, and these will soon need to go into paper packets. So the drying's coming along really well. And here's the dahlia. As you can see, it's multiplied considerably. We only had a couple of those bulbs to begin with, and it's really working out well. So we'll get that outside for today and just help it to dry off. So I think I'll put it on the bench. That's where it was yesterday, and it certainly gets some good exposure. So we'll let that carry on the drying process. Now, as far as jobs go today, I've got this ever-increasing mound of foliage and leaf, which is going to make up part of the base of the next compost layer, and I want to get all that over into one of those bins. So we've been working hard at moving the compost over the last few days, and I've opened it up this morning, and that's what's left. So I'm hoping to get all that out, and then that pile of compost can come in here, or a pile of foliage, and then that will start the base of the next lot of compost making. So where to put it? Well, there's a few options. I can either weed this and get it around the base of those, or I can carefully spread it along this bed where the leeks, these young leeks, are just coming through. And I think I'm favouring that at the moment because it makes an easy stretch of compost to work at. Over here we've still got plenty going on, and there's not a lot of room to start adding at the moment. So I think I'm going to settle over on the middle bed and see what needs to be done there. A few winter groundworking jobs to be done, and I'm tempted to sort of start them all and have them going all at once for some variety. So just to recap, we've got this bank to come out, and these dahlias now are pretty much over, so I could start to move that out of the way and take the surface off there and start to make some inroads in there. So that's one plan I've got. I recalled the other day that when I put these lavender in, I sort of put them into a false trough. So if you pull away there, you can see the wooden structure. Now, it looks okay. It might be a little bit rotten underneath. We'll have to wait and see. But those wooden struts, they might come in handy. Of course, the pond is underway, and there's still quite a bit of digging to do there. So that's something I need to carry on with. And I want to start moving that soil onto the bank, see if I can cover up the grass. I think I might just take that grass, sliver the spade underneath it and turn it over just to help the rotting process. So yep, there's the pond to carry on with. Another area, of course, is this, what I term the courgette mound. And I've decided to do something different with that this year. And I'd like to make it more of a open bed, a bit like this large bed here. So I'm thinking that wood from over amongst the lavender might serve as the barrier for this bed. We'll have to wait and see until it comes out, but that's an idea. And of course I've got the bed that I took out the rhubarb from, and I might find a way of using that as well. So that's 1, 2, 3 winter groundwork projects that I could be working at the same time. And it helps because if it's really wet in one particular area, then I can work in another. So putting this mulch around these plants just takes a little bit more care, but it really isn't too complicated. You just need to put it around the base of each, and then we can spread it out across the rest of the bed. Might have to just pull 1 or 2 up as we go along, make sure they don't get buried. Now, these leeks have surprised me. I thought they would just diminish to nothing after revealing them once I'd taken the run of beans out, but they've stood up, which is a good positive sign. And I think probably they're just going to be very late, and as long as they withhold the frost, which we've had a couple of frosts the last couple of nights, then they'll be fine. Right, that's got the bulk of these covered, so I'm just going to add the remainder to the edge and go and get some more. Well, I'm pretty pleased with that. That's a fair layer on top of that bed, and I've pulled through any of the leaves that got a bit pommeled by the compost, and they're stood up well, so they may well come through. The dilemma is I'd really like to cover this bed, but with the leeks in there, I'm just going to have to be patient and see how we go. But that's a good bed covered, and looking at what's left in the compost bay, surprisingly, still at least 1 barrow and maybe 2. So I think I'm going to do a bit of weeding in this broccoli bed. This is the purple sprouting broccoli, and then I can make a short trip from the bay and just get some spread at least part way along this bed. So I think that's my next step. Well, last night we had a couple of these parsnips out of the bed and I roasted them, and I got to tell you, they were fantastic. So it's just in a small amount of oil and basted once or twice during the oven process, and they came out perfectly. And the 2 that I took out were, you know, a fisherman's parsnip, really big, and they were very, very nice indeed. And I also took out a celeriac, which, as I usually do, I cut up and cooked with some potatoes. So I use about the same amount of celeriac as I do potato, cook it through and then mash it. Add a little bit of butter and pepper if you like, and it was absolutely delicious. So we had a really good plot-based meal last night. I added a few carrots. Well, I added one carrot actually. As you will have seen from the carrots in the polytunnel, they're enormous and they have split, but if you cut away the split, there's enough carrot there for a couple of meals. So there might not be many of them, but they are big. So that was a very successful meal from the plot, which is always very rewarding. So I'm going to get on and get all this weed out of this bed. It'll be a good job to get it out anyway. And I've noticed one of the broccoli has not stood up well against the cane, so I'm going to adjust that when I get up there. So I'll get on. Well, I got a bit carried away, I know, but it's so easy to get the weeds out of these beds. The way they are with the mulch means that the soil is really soft, and it took me just 10 minutes to work my way through the whole bed, and the swede in there looked fantastic. Now, I did come across a good 2 or 3 of these which need to be tied against the stakes again for the winter. So I'll get on and do that, and then more compost. Well, that's covered probably just over 1/3 of the bed, which is great. And it was getting harder work as I was getting down in the compost bin because the couch grass is more prevalent at the edges. And the temptation is to get that extra foliage and stuff I've been piling up in here straight away. But I think I need to spend some time just clearing this out. Otherwise I give everything a head start in terms of weeds when it comes to the next load of compost for next year. So I'm going to spend some time sorting that. And today I think it's probably not the day. Well, the dahlias look to be drying out nicely. So that's a good thing. I've been astonished how this rhubarb has been shooting so soon after it's died back. And we've got a leaf here and we've got another bud starting there. But in just a few days, this has come out, which is brand new stems. It'll be very interesting to see what happens as we go through the winter. And there's another bulb just starting to burst there. So rhubarb kicking off really early. We'll see what happens over the coming weeks. You might have noticed over the last couple of weeks we've had some mole action really stepping up. So this mole seems to be tracking its way along the path, and I really don't mind having moles on the plot, but this one's really getting active, so I don't know where he's heading. I think it's because the lower part of the plot is that much more wet, and in all this wet weather he's decided to track his way up here, or her way up here, to get some dry soil to work in. And I think he's headed over there into those plots, so we'll see. There's a job brewing up over here at the base of all these fruit trees where there's just the smallest gap. We found that there's a great proliferation of weeds, and it just goes to show, if this hadn't been covered over, how much weed growth there would be on this land now. And I've probably pulled weeds out of here now and then during the course of the season, but I'm astonished how all of a sudden it started to get going. So I want to try and get that early. I'm probably going to do that in the next couple of days. But it's amazing just how the weeds seem to be growing well at a time of year when you think things would start to die back. The leaves dropping off of the currants now is huge. In fact, this plant here I think has probably dropped all its leaves, and you can see the buds already starting for next year's growth, and they'll stay fairly dormant over the coming weeks as long as it doesn't get too warm. We've got a bit of a wayward bramble here that's coming out from well over there, which we need to take out. And you look into there and you can see a fair amount of weeds, but a lot of it is stinging nettles, and this plant is giant, so I'm going to get down in there and try and get rid of some of that in the next few weeks as these leaves fall completely. And it's a good time of year just to assess whether the bushes are getting too big and quite what I need to do in the way of pruning when it comes to the right time to do that. There's another huge stinging nettle in there. So stinging nettles amongst these bushes is a bit of a problem, but without getting down to the roots, it's very hard to get rid of them. And I don't want to disturb the fruit bushes so much that they don't fruit next year. So it's going to be more of the same, pulling them out and trying to get control of them. The pear tree has dropped an awful lot of leaves, and I can start to see the shape of it now that the foliage is falling away. And it's a good time to assess what needs to be done when it comes to pruning. And it looks like I'm going to have to top this tree out. I don't want it to get giant, so I'm probably going to take quite a bit off of the top, and then one or two of these wayward and straggly branches that are coming out the sides, I'm just going to keep control of them. And then it'll be a case of looking inside the bush or tree and seeing if there's anything that is crossing over one branch to another and deciding whether I'm going to take that out or not. So starting to see the wood for the trees. Pond's begging for me to do some more digging, I know, but looking at this morning, it's still incredibly wet, and I think I'm just going to wait another day. We've got a couple of dry days forecast, so give it one more day, I think, to drain away, and then we'll start having another go. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.